Welcome to our very first predictions. UFC 305, Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis.
This on the Dodson Corner podcast. What it do, baby?
This is Dodson's Corner. It's a brand new casual UFC channel. We're going to be doing breakdowns, predictions, reactions to the fights, and then also some games. We're going to be doing like guess the UFC fighter based on emojis, based on all sorts of different things, based on tweets. So I think there's going to be like some interesting content that hasn't been done on YouTube before.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's exciting. I think we have lots of great ideas, and I think it's just going to be a couple of casuals who think they're MMA experts. But I mean, most UFC YouTubers and content creators are basically casuals.
And now that we got rid of Lucas Tracy, I mean, Bedtime MMA thinks that he's going for that spot, but really it's us.
He's gonna go good night.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it. So we have UFC 305. Break it down. Izzy is the number 2 contender right now. He just lost to Strickland in his last fight. Did you watch that fight?
I have seen it. I didn't watch it live, but I have seen that fight.
All right.
I have seen that one. I'm not that big of a casual. Strickland dogged on him.
Well, don't mention dogs around Izzy.
No, it was basically like the roles reversed of the Strickland versus Costa was Izzy versus Strickland.
Yeah.
I know, not even roles reversed. Like Strickland did the same thing.
Yeah. It was not close. I mean, Strickland really just dominated. He pushed forward, pushed his game plan the whole time. So I guess the main thing that I'm wondering is Izzy going to be able to come back to his form that we saw like 2-3 years ago when he was super active, fighting every couple of months? And that also kind of leads me to one of my main questions, because it feels like Izzy is trying to get back to where he was, whereas it feels like Dricus is still improving on every fight. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. I don't think that Izzy's ever going to get back to like active Izzy, like champion Izzy. Like I actually saw Saturday talking about him and Usman when they were champions, like in like a 2-year span, they made him into like 11 pay-per-views or something, or like a 3-year span. Like it was just every card was Usman or Izzy. Yeah. And I think as Izzy gets older and he's been chinned a couple times, like he's not going to be able to be as active as he formerly was. But I think we'll see what we predict. But if Izzy wins, I think he'll be a 2-time-a-year champion. I don't think he'll ever be 3 or 4 fight-a-year champion unless we see something else happen, quick fight. But we'll wait and see what happens. Yeah. And I think with Dricus, I think he's got so much to prove right now, and he's in like, I don't know if there's a division that has a deeper top 5, especially the top 4 of middleweight is stacked. Yeah. So I think that there's money fights to be made in that top 4, just kind of switching around. Whoever wins their fights gets to fight, and I think that there's fights to be made there. So I think that whoever wins is going to have to be active, because Strickland's at the door, Whitaker and Chimaev are at the door.
Yeah, it's definitely an active division, which is nice. You have a bunch of top contenders who could all realistically fight for the belt. Chimaev, I don't know, like, is he going to show up to the Whitaker fight? Is he going to show up to any title fights? I think it's kind of strange how the UFC keeps on pushing him, even though it's like such a risk if he becomes champion,
Name value to where all the money is, The Saudis and the Abu Dhabi crowd love him, and that's where the money is. You see that the Saudi shows and the Abu Dhabi cards are like stacked. Like these fight nights are more stacked or on par with our pay-per-views, because that's where the money is. So he's going to fight on those cards, and he's going to announce it because it's going to sell tickets and it's going to sell pay-per-views.
Yeah. Do you think, Izzy's coming off an 11th month layoff, which is pretty big for him. It's not big for like an average UFC fighter. We've seen tons of fighters come back over.
John Jones. Or not come back, sorry. Stipe.
Yeah. That's the thing though. It's like, is Izzy gonna reinvent himself, or is he gonna just be the same person that he was against Strickland and think that that's enough? I don't think it is. And we're gonna get into our predictions. We should probably just get into our predictions already.
I would say so. I think we should get into it.
Okay. All right. And another thing is, does it feel like fight week to you? Because for me, I haven't seen like any serious promo. Obviously, there's the embedded and all that sort of stuff, but I don't know. As a relatively casual fan, I have not seen a lot of hype or a lot of promo for 305.
I saw the trunks for the main event, which I like Dricus's trunks, but I don't like Izzy's trunks because they're black and gold. Like, why is Izzy wearing black and gold trunks as like the
Trump?
Stop. We're not getting into politics here until Sean Strickland fights. But yeah, why is he wearing like, they look like champion tights? I don't know if you've seen them or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I saw like one piece of artwork. That is all I have seen. Like, and that's not even just the main event. I think that because you don't have like a lot of characters, I think like Steve Erceg and like you haven't seen anything from that co-main, and I think that there is potential for it, but there's not really like bad blood there, and they can't even play off like the hometown boy versus the challenger because it's hometown boy versus hometown boy.
Yeah, it's tough. I think getting Erceg on the co-main, it seems a little bit weird, even though he did headline UFC 301, losing against Pantoja in a close fight. He doesn't have the name value yet, and he's also a flyweight. So any fights at flyweight, just by nature, are going to be a little bit less exciting and have less hype behind them. So I think it's an interesting choice to put them as the co-main, where you have Mateus Gamrot and Dan Hooker as the third fight, who are equally high up in their divisions. And arguably, Dan Hooker has been around for a really long time, and Mateus Gamrot potentially has a title shot coming. So I think that's a little bit of a strange choice by the UFC, but I'm not mad. Steve Erceg, he's the man. Like, I love Steve Erceg.
Yeah, I find that a little bit interesting because like Dan Hooker does have like a little bit of name value to casuals.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a name that you hear and you're like, I think I've heard that name before. No one's heard of Ty Tara France or Steve Erceg if you're not actively watching like every pay-per-view. Yeah. You know, and the people who watch some pay-per-views probably didn't watch UFC 301 when it's headlined by flyweights.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of this like weird thing that the UFC's been doing where they're really like pushing these like featured bouts, like the third fight they've been pushing, and then also like we saw it in Manchester with Patty and Bobby Green start opening up the card. Like they're pushing to like have like a more balanced card than it to be like very top heavy. Like they want to balance it out throughout the card, which I think is interesting. But
yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into the predictions before we waste any more time. We could talk for a long time, but opening up the card, we have Li Jianlang versus Carlos Prates. So this is a welterweight matchup. And the thing I noted about this is Prates has a 6.5 inch reach advantage, which is pretty substantial. And also Li Jianlang broke his back and has been out for almost 2 years. He's 36, coming off a broken back. And for me, that kind of influenced my pick a lot, to be honest. And that's why I picked Carlos Prates. I think this one could go either way. There's definitely potential for it to go either way. But I think that just coming off the injury, it's going to be a difficult thing to overcome if he hasn't been training in those 2 years.
It's as simple as Li Jianlang is getting chinned.
You think so?
100%. Carlos Prates, I think he had finished his last like most of his recent fights have been chins and finishes. And Li Jianlang is coming off a broken back, old, and is fighting a guy with a 6.5 inch wingspan on him. Like,
yeah,
I think especially if this fight stays on the feet, he's gonna get chinned.
I think this one. Do you think it has the potential to go distance?
I personally have it as a KO. I think if I were to bet on it, I would say it's a round 1 or 2 KO, like a first half of the fight KO. But I mean, that's why I'm the casual here.
I think it could go the distance. I just think with so many of these fights that are like opening up the card, it doesn't feel like they have for lots of the fights, in my opinion, it feels like they don't really get on with it and they just kind of coast to a 29-28, 30-27 decision. If they know they're winning the fight, they're kind of like they don't really push for a finish.
That is true.
Especially if, you know, Li Jianlang is older, Carlos Prates, he's lost to bad people. He's lost to bad fighters. So I think there's potential for it to go both ways, but I think we both have Carlos Prates winning this one.
Yeah.
And for the second fight on the card, we have Tai Tuivasa going up against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Is he cooked?
Tai Tuivasa is cooked. This guy is like
generational fall off.
Generational fall off, and him and Anthony Smith, generational delusionalness. Like they like I need Anthony Smith to push heavyweight so that these two can fight, because they are just like delusional. Like Tai Tuivasa in his head probably thinks he could contend for that title, because he's like, oh, I'm gonna go finish this guy. Boom, chinned, subbed, and in the hometown, he's going to come out guns blazing. Like, dude wants that 50K bonus, but is the one who's giving out the 50K bonus to his op.
I don't know. I think obviously he's had some losses, but they're all against tougher opponents. I mean, you have I have them written down. You have Tybura, you have Volkov, Pavlovich, and Gon, who all went on to win very good fights. I mean, Pavlovich went on that crazy streak. Volkov just won against Pavlovich, and Gon became the interim champ. So you look at those losses, and on paper, no Anthony Smith. On paper, Ty has lost the last 4 of his fights, but at the same time, they are against good competition. So I think that I do agree with you. I think that he's gonna have some issues with how technical Rosenstrike is. He is a good striker. Mm-hmm. Both of them are. I think Tai Tuivasa has a lot more power in his hands and can get that freak one punch KO if he doesn't get KO'd. But I think Rosenstrike is technically more sound. So that's why I picked Rosenstrike.
Yeah, I also picked Rosenstrike. I just think he needs to stay calm against Tai Tuivasa, who's going to come out, like I said, guns blazing. He's going to go out for that finish in his home country. I keep saying hometown, home country, same thing. Like, I think that he's going to try to have like a minute or two Tom Aspinall-esque KO here, and I think he's going to get finished. I don't know if it's going to be sub or KO. I would probably say he's going to get chinned also, but yeah, I think that he's going to be on his way to potentially being
the Apex.
The Apex is gone. They're
the new
renovating.
Apex. The new Apex.
He'll main event the return of the Apex. Him and T Ferg.
Yeah, and just for context, Rosenstrike just won against Shamil the Blob Gaziev, which it's an okay win.
That's my
I would
boy.
say. I mean, yeah, he's a future champ, obviously. And then he lost to Almeida before that, who he's a good grappler, Almeida, and then he got TKO'd by Razor Blades, Curtis Blades. So they're okay. I wouldn't say they're anything special in the heavyweight division. It's kind of like your average, like, they can throw big strikes and maybe something lands.
Yeah, this really feels like something that Dana would put as a fight night main event.
Oh yeah,
like this is like
100%. This is a stinker fight night in the Apex.
Exactly. Yeah. Like this is literally what we just had this last Saturday.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the third fight of the night. We have Mateus Gamrot taking on Dan Hooker. This is lightweight, number 5 ranked Mateus Gamrot versus number 11 ranked Dan Hooker. This is kind of a blessing for Dan Hooker to even get this fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was worried where you were going with blessing. I was like,
no. Yeah, Dan Hooker doesn't necessarily deserve getting Mateus Gamrot, who's on a great streak right now. And Dan Hooker's lost a lot of fights, but he's also won against good competition as well. So again, I think this is one where something could happen and Dan Hooker could win, land something crazy. But at the same time, I think this is going to be a very easy Gamrot out wrestles him to a decision win. I think that's the most logical thing. He has more wins in recent history, and I think with another good win, he could be in title contention pretty soon.
I think that this is a weird fight to book from Dana. I don't know what Dan Hooker did, but like, how do you have...
It's Perth.
Yeah, Dan Hooker, Why do you have him fighting in his home country? Like, you want him all the route, and you want those home country guys to win. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Against a stylistic match or nightmare. Like, this is a nightmare matchup for Dan Hooker, because Gamrot's going to take this fight to the ground and he's going to destroy Hooker on the ground. And like, even just like in terms of like rankings, like Hooker, like he's just going to turn into a roadblock for these up and comers eventually. And Gamrot's on the up, Hooker's on the down. Like, it really doesn't make a lot of sense on why this fight was booked. Like, I guess it has to do with name value, but I see this fight being a very easy 30-27 for Gamrot.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this is going to be... I think Gamrot's going to put on the performance of the night in terms of a dominant standpoint, but not, like, what Dana wants out of your performance tonight. I think this is going to be domination from Gamrot, and I think he's really going to put himself out there, and people are going to think, could this guy wrestle with Izzy?
Izzy?
Sorry, Islam. Casual. Could this guy wrestle with Islam?
Yeah.
Because I think that Gamrot, out of all the light weights, we haven't seen him fight Izzy or Islam. And I think that there's a chance that Gamrot's going to get an Islam fight. I know he doesn't have the name value in a division where it's so much name value with Poirier, with your Oliveira, with your Chandlers, you know, and I guess with McGregor is in lightweight now too, like
welterweight. He was going to come back at welterweight.
Well, he'll be in lightweight. He's not actually
He's not ever going to fight again. Let's be real.
He's going to fight.
No.
Just wait for a future video.
All right. Crazy prediction. Conor McGregor never fights again. All right. Let's move on to the fourth fight. The co-main event. We have Kai Kara-France versus Steve Erceg. Michael Scott, Bedtime MMA, whatever you know him as. Number 4 ranked Kai Kara-France versus number 7 ranked Steve Erceg. Somehow Steve Erceg went up 3 rankings after losing against Pantoja, which I think that's the right decision.
I think that's fair. Like, he put on a showing, and if you went and you just re-ranked that division, I think 7 could potentially be low. Like, I could see if he wins this fight, he'll be top 4 at minimum. And I know that since he's already fought Pantoja, they'll probably push some other guys higher than him. Yeah. But I mean, well, technically he would have passed Makayev now.
I mean, Makayev isn't a UFC fighter anymore, but Erceg, I mean, he's coming off the loss from Pantoja, which was a very competitive fight, and I think Erceg kind of threw that last round. But Kai Kara-France is also coming off 2 losses, but they're also from good opponents. So we haven't seen Kai Kara-France fight and win in a long time, so I think it'll be interesting. I think he has a lot to prove in this fight. So that's kind of one storyline, but ultimately, I do think Steve Erceg is really talented. What we saw against Pantoja, the boxing, and I think the composure of headlining a UFC main event and a pay-per-view main event at that, and he's only in his 3rd fight in the UFC. That is super impressive, and he seemed really calm throughout the whole thing. I think that's just his demeanor. I was impressed, and so I think Steve Erceg, I want Steve Erceg to get it done, so that's why I picked him. I think if this stays on the feet, he's going to pick him apart with some clean boxing and get a decision win.
I am also backing Erceg in this fight. I think Erceg really put himself out there in the last fight. I just think that he was a little bit young and inexperienced, like we saw in the 5th round there, like sold. So I think that we are on the Steve Erceg path to the championship. I think by the end of 2025,
title run starts now. That's all I'm saying.
I think by the end of 2025 we could see Steve Erceg as the flyweight champion, because I mean I don't really see anyone else contending against Pantoja outside of Erceg. Like, I mean,
you have Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, who have both fought and lost.
Like, a month ago, I thought that a guy to potentially, I know we're not talking about Pantoja, but I thought the guy that potentially dethroned Pantoja was Manel Kape, but might have been the worst UFC fight I've ever seen.
He's better at talking than fighting.
Yeah, that was Yapperfest. Yeah. But so I think Steve Erceg is going to come out. I think we have potential for fight of the night here. I think that this is going to be an absolute 3-round brawl.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a 5-round main event. I don't see why it would be, but no. I think we're going to see a 3-round absolute brawl from these guys, and I think it's gonna be clearly an Erceg win, but Kai Kara-France is still gonna put up a fight. Like,
he's gonna have some big moments.
I don't think it's gonna be like a 30-27. I think it will be a split, or no, unanimous. I don't know,
like 29-28.
Yeah, 29-28. Maybe you got someone going a delusional going 29-28 for Kai Kara-France, but I think Steve Erceg is gonna be dominant enough that he's probably this win and then a win against a Moreno or Royval away from fighting Pantoja again, or whoever beats Pantoja in the future. But I think that Steve Erceg,
one more win after this, if he wins this, and then another title shot, I would say. Yeah, that's fair. All right, and now the main event, definitely by far the best matchup on this card. The name value on this card, DDP versus Izzy. Izzy coming off, like we talked about in the beginning, he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He lost, dog bender t-shirt. He lost against Pereira and then won against Pereira, which was obviously a very impressive performance. And then he lost again against Strickland in a huge upset. I remember watching that live, and it was like at the end of that first round, you were like, there's no way that Strickland almost just finished him, but at the same time, like, okay, Izzy's gonna come back now. He's gonna put it on and get a KO. And Strickland just walked him down the whole time and did his own game plan. So I think the way that I went about thinking about this is DDP blitzes in and he moves forward. He moved forward against Sean Strickland, which is how he won. Controversially,
I wouldn't agree that he won.
All right. Well, Dylan hates DDP. All right.
Number 1 most hated UFC fighter. I am so ready for Saturday. I bought this shirt not because I actually like Izzy, but because I don't like DDP that much. Like, he's my least favorite fighter in the UFC.
Damn.
He's terrible in UFC 5. Just gets chinned all day. Like,
but he has a weird style. Like, people have talked about this so much, and he has an awkward style that's hard to train for, similar to someone like Sean Strickland, who just like has an unconventional MMA style, which makes it hard to train for until you get in the ring with him. And so I think that's going to cause Izzy some problems, just like it caused him problems with Sean Strickland. And again, I'm comparing these two a lot because we've seen all of them fight,
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good benchmark. And obviously MMA math doesn't add up like that, but at the same time, DDP, he is huge. He is a massive middleweight. Yeah. Like, you look at some of the other people, look at Shara Bullet. Look at that skinny boy, and then look at DDP, who is just a brick wall. He is huge. He has good wrestling. He has good striking. It's just weird and like not style, like technically good. But I do think he has power. He has finishing power. We saw him finish Whitaker, who I think a lot of people were saying, oh, Whitaker had an off night, Whitaker's fallen off, but we've seen Whitaker perform really well now. So I think that win is aging really well for DDP, and a lot of people are realizing he might actually be good.
No, he's not. When people talk about DDP, about like the way he wins this fight, they don't talk about because DDP's good. They talk about because he's stylistically weird, and it's hard to copy that in training. Like, it's hard in sparring to have your sparring partner pretend to be DDP. That's what they talk about with him. It's not that he's good. Every fight, I think he gets worse because we see more and more of him in the ring, of his weird stylistic striking and how he attacks in the ring. And I think that we're gonna see him get exposed. Really? On Saturday.
See, that's what people have been saying for so long, and he hasn't lost. So that's why I think that we haven't even done our prediction. What's your prediction?
Oh, Izzy is getting that gold back.
Really?
Yeah.
How's he gonna do it?
He's chinning DDP.
In what round?
Round 1.
Oh,
but I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to talk too much because we're gonna talk about it later. But
when? When are we talking about this?
We're talking about it in the grand finale of the podcast.
Okay. In your crazy prediction. I see where we're okay, great. Okay.
But yeah, I think that Izzy has taken 11 months off. I think we're gonna see a very mature Izzy here. I think if we were gonna see the same old Izzy, we would have seen more presser about it and more hype about this fight. I think Izzy's gonna come in. I think he's obviously going to do in the presser. He's going to be a little bit goofy like he always is, a little dog bending over. But, he's going to come out and he is going to chin Dricus and fraud check Dricus and prove that he is...
Dricus is a champion. You can't get fraud checked as a champion. Unless you're Cody Garbrandt, you can't get fraud checked as a champion.
Dricus is the 4th or 5th best middleweight. I think Whitaker's better than him. What I saw out of Whitaker in that last fight, when
you think Bilal Muhammad could come up and beat him?
No, I think
in the striking, in the grappling, I beat him everywhere.
I think most welterweights would actually struggle against Dricus because of his pure size.
Yeah, he's huge.
I think But I think Strickland beats him in a rematch because I think Strickland has that edge on him.
Edge?
I think Izzy beats him here. What I saw to Whitaker in that last fight makes me think that he beats Dricus. I think Chimaev, if he actually fights, is good, but he's tarnished from not fighting.
I think Chimaev has a serious health issue. I think this isn't just him pulling out. I think he has like
sweaty mats.
he has Khabib syndrome. We don't talk about it. Okay, my prediction. I'm going with the upset. Is it an upset?
Izzy is a slight favorite.
Okay. I'm going with the upset then. I'm going with DDP, and I did it just partly because I wanted to see pain in your face when he wins.
I'm leaving right away. Like,
yeah,
like
the night's over. We're not recording.
We're not filming our podcast that night about like the results and like reacting to our predictions. I'm just going right home and I'm gonna cry. Probably burn the shirt. No point to have the shirt if you lose to DDP.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk into the South African anthem if he wins. I'm saying that right now. Copyright strike, don't come for me. But okay, yeah, I have DDP. I think he's gonna make it a dogfight. He's gonna mix in some wrestling. I think he's gonna push the pace on Izzy. He has way better cardio in his last 2 fights now that he got his nose fixed or whatever was the problem with that. So honestly, I think just based on how Izzy looks in his last fights, how Dricus has looked, I have to go with DDP. I think people who are predicting Adesanya to win are praying that he finds something in his training and has some sort of spark lit under him. And I don't think that's going to happen. We've done predictions for the last 10 UFC cards now, and we're usually pretty even, and there's usually 1 or 2 fights that we differentiate on, and I usually end up winning.
Yeah, because I took Tony Ferguson 2 weekends
ago.
Tony
Ferguson, took Dustin Poirier. He's in it for the fans. He's a fan man.
Yeah, I like my boys. I want to root for my boys.
All right, and now something that we want to do, we didn't want to just give predictions and just call it a day. We want to do something a little bit more. So we're going to do biggest good surprise on the card. We're going to do
the bust of the night, baby. Like the biggest flop or bust.
Biggest flop, Dylan really wanted to call it biggest bust of the night, so that's what we're calling it. And then a Hail Mary prediction, which is pretty much just one crazy prediction for the fights. It could be anything. It could be something that happens at the press conference. It could be something that happens in the fight. So Dylan, what is your biggest good surprise for UFC 305?
I think that Gamrot is gonna really make a name for himself on Saturday. I think that people's eyes are really going to open up and see that he's a real contender in that lightweight division. And I think with the talk about the interim title, there's a lot of talk about who would fight Arman. It's mostly like Chandler, Poirier, or Oliveira. But if Gamrot really puts on a good showing, who knows? Maybe we see him versus Arman for that interim title.
No, there's not going to be an interim title. Islam, you need to be out for more than a year or a year and a half to get an interim title. Islam is still physically fit. He just has to get a surgery.
What if they do McGregor versus Chandler for the interim title?
Stop. You're so dumb. My biggest good surprise for UFC 305, Urseg is going to get a KO finish.
Ooh.
Which I think is that would be a big surprise because he's lower ranked, even though people might have him most people probably have him winning this fight.
He is the favorite. Even though he is the lower rank, he is the favorite.
Yeah. I think it is still a big surprise because it's flyweight. You don't see a lot of KOs in flyweight, so that's my biggest good surprise. Now, my bust, I can't say this, my bust of the night is Tai Tuivasa lands less than 15 significant strikes before getting KO'd. It's over for you, buddy. Tai Tuivasa.
My bust of the night is?
Yeah.
Tai Tuivasa gets chinned in the first round, not even like.
Wait, so we both had the same?
I have Tai Tuivasa as the bust of the night. Like I think he's gonna get chinned early on. It's so like I had a couple others. Like I wanted to put Dan Hooker because I think he's gonna get absolutely demolished.
Yeah.
I think that Dricus is gonna get clowned.
But
I think Tai Tuivasa is like, it just like thinking about a bust of the night. It's him. Oh no! Oh man!
Clip that. All right. So I was thinking like for these predictions, like it has to be something specific where it's like you have to get a point for it.
Okay.
So are you thinking like Tai Tuivasa doesn't
First-
make it out of the first round?
Yeah. First
Okay.
round loss.
Okay. We don't look at each other's predictions before we do this. So this
I'm
is
blind.
just completely random that we have both Tai Tuivasa for the biggest flop. Now, Hail Mary prediction. Dylan, what do you have?
Izzy KO's Dricus in the first minute and then calls out Poatan Alex Pereira. There's a reason he's doesn't have a fight scheduled.
Really? Okay.
And
first
the thing
minute.
is
First minute.
First minute. I think Izzy
If this is
power.
right, if this is right, that would be
How many strikers in the UFC are more powerful than Izzy? Like pound for pound more powerful. Pereira.
I don't put me on the spot like this. Let me think.
You have one.
Derek Lewis.
Derek
Lewis.
Rose?
Yeah. I was thinking D
Derek
Rose.
Lewis?
I was thinking D Rose. Derek Lewis, but I mean pound for pound, that dude's like 260 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Izzy is powerful.
He is.
It takes one. You know, it could take one. Like, sorry, it's not one, but like he'll knock him down
like
to
a
finish
flurry.
him.
Yeah.
Like, and then he's gonna call out Poatan Alex Pereira.
I think if he does win, I think he should call out Pereira.
Why?
But they want to make that Strickland rematch. Surely they want to make that.
It's so weird that unless Pereira's hurt, I think or they knew about these allegations that I think have been proven to be false. I think that the
no controversy on our first episode, please.
But unless that is, they knew about that sooner, and that's why they didn't book the fight. But I don't know. I think I think Izzy's chinning Dricus in the first minute and calling out Alex Pereira. That's my Hail Mary prediction.
Now, yeah, that is the definition of a Hail Mary prediction. That is pretty crazy. My Hail Mary prediction, I would say, is a little bit more safe than that, even though I think it's still very unlikely. 4 out of 5 of the main card fights don't go the distance. So 4 out of 5 are finishes. And the reason... it's crazy. And it's crazy because first fight...
Could go the distance. I give it...
I think it could go 50%. Second fight? No.
It's a heavyweight.
Third fight?
Yeah.
Probably.
I think that there's a good chance. Like, Gamrot's a good wrestler, but he's not like a crazy submission artist, you know?
And then you have fourth fight, which is flyweights. Probably doesn't go the distance. And then fifth fight, DDP versus Izzy.
I think if DDP wins, it goes the distance. I think that Izzy's best bet, because I think Dricus is a better wrestler than Izzy.
Oh, yeah.
I think that his best bet is to chin him. And I think if it goes the distance, there is a chance it goes to Dricus, but it's not going to go the distance.
Well, we've already seen Dricus win one robbery decision, so... No, it's not a robbery. It was a close fight.
It was a close fight.
Yeah.
And that's why we need the new judging system. I brought this up 2 weekends ago at Fight Night Abu Dhabi. They got to do it Olympic style. Get 5 judges in there and have the judge who has like the 2 judges with the most variance, get them out of there. So we have like more precise. Like there is some bad reffing. Yeah. And I don't think that any of it judging. Any of it has been worse than that Paulo Costa versus Strickland. That is probably the worst.
Oh my goodness.
That was worst
insane.
Judging I've ever seen. I remember sitting in the hot tub watching that and I was like, what the heck?
Yeah. I think because didn't someone have it like 49 for Costa?
Yeah.
And 49, 46 for Costa, which it was a clearly Strickland.
Costa even have 10 strikes?
Yeah. Anyways, that's a different conversation. But that is our UFC 305 predictions. We have some crazy predictions in there, and we're gonna be doing lots more videos. So stay tuned for Dodson's Corner.
Yes, sir. Peace out.